Sony closed out their E3 2017 press conference with a bang. It's something we've been waiting to see since last year. We finally got a lengthy look at the PlayStation exclusive and Insomniac developed Spider-Man. I'm Andrew the New Guy, and today in gameranx we're here to bring you everything new you need to know about Insomniac's Spider-Man. So starting off, let's talk about some of the different characters we got to see in this gameplay demo. We got to see two villains that are going to be popping up throughout the game. In this demo, we saw Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin, and Mr. Negative. Now, even though these two were in the demo, I definitely don't think that one of them is going to end up being the main antagonist. I just think that they're both kind of way too small time and not that interesting. Not that Wilson Fisk is like a small time criminal, that's like, you know, top dog, but I still just don't think there's enough there to make him like the big baddie. Spider-Man games have always featured a ton of different villains and characters, whether they're a quick boss battle or just someone that you run into or a very obvious Easter egg, they're always there. One thing we definitely have to acknowledge is the re-elect Osborn for mayor sign that Spider-Man crashes through during the helicopter chase scene. Off the top of my head, I can't recall Norman or Harry Osborn running for mayor, but I do know that Norman Osborn is obsessed with power. That's always been his thing, so him running for mayor makes complete sense. And seeing that this is a Spider-Man that has been Spider-Man for quite some time, maybe Norman Osborn has already died as Green Goblin and we get Harry Osborn. So seeing that there is an Osborn presence in this game, maybe Green Goblin is the big baddie, which is honestly something I would love to see. I wouldn't mind it at all. It's also important to note that Martin Lee, aka Mr. Negative, has been involved with politics as well, so maybe him and Goblin are working together. You also spend some time talking to Yuri Watanabe, who seems to be someone that Spider-Man is working with. Yuri is also known as a vigilante wraith, and she has a hand in revealing Mr. Negative's identity for the first time in the comics, so I really don't think that any of this is coincidental. Something else that we got to see at the very beginning of the demo was the stealth part, where Spider-Man seems to use some sort of gadget that he sticks to a wall, and when an enemy walks past it, it grabs him and sticks him into the wall that gadget's on. Now there's a bar that depletes when he uses it, so maybe Spider-Man has different gadgets at his disposal. Insomniac did say that this is an older and more experienced Peter Parker, and Peter does end up becoming a scientist later on, so he does have the ability and the resources to create these gadgets for himself. The icon next to the bar that fills up also changes throughout the demo and shows two different icons. The first one being what looks like that wall gadget I mentioned, and the other one being a web that he seems to just shoot out quick that tangles up an enemy. So if there are different gadgets or abilities, it looks like you can have only one at a time ready to go. And I love the idea of there being different gadgets and different abilities because, like I said, Peter Parker is a scientist and he's always working on crazy things. So maybe there's a weapon wheel or a gadget wheel or upgradable web blasters or something like that. I would love to see it. Another cool thing we got to see is the game's combat, and one of the things I was dying to know was how Spidey controlled and how he moves, and it looks exactly how I thought it would. He moves very quick and is always jumping and bouncing around enemies. And it seems that it's going with more of a Batman Arkham style of combat with a lot of blocking and counterattacking coming into play, which has been used in other games, and I think it's perfect for combat. But at its core, it really looks like Spider-Man-like combat, which is a good thing. Then there's the use of the environment in the combat. During the second combat sequence of the demo, Spider-Man uses a hanging steel beam to take out a group of enemies, and it looks seamless and it looks so cool. There's a button prompt for L1 that pops up on the beam in the background, and after pressing it, a bunch of dudes just get steeled in the head. Bringing the environment into play with the combat is an awesome idea, and it's very Spider-Man. That's totally something that he would do. There's also a point in the demo where the combat actually changes, at least it looks like it changes. A bigger enemy drops from a helicopter, and everything is just slightly different. The camera angle is different, and it's a lot tighter on Spider-Man. He's also on that cool Spider-Man stance, not just standing there. His attacks also seem different, as does the way he dodges incoming attacks. It seems that in this combat sequence, everything is way more planned out and premeditated, and I really like the idea of the combat changing for a harder enemy or a boss battle or something like that. Getting the combat to work properly, look cool, and be fun while you're doing it is very important for a Spider-Man game, with the next most important thing probably being the web swinging, which we did get to look at as well, and it looks very similar to the web swinging in the last game, Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I personally think is a very fun game. Insomniac did confirm via a tweet that the web swinging is physics-based and that your web does attach to buildings, which is definitely a plus. That's definitely the best way to go about the web swinging. There's also a lot of cool interactions with buildings and billboards and a lot of other environmental interactions while you're swinging, which kind of makes it a little bit more cinematic. And speaking of cinematic, there was a lot of transitions to what I'm assuming is to cutscenes of Spider-Man like crashing into a building and then ending with a QTE and then transitioning into a part where you're running through a building while a giant metal Metal crate is crashing into shit behind you, all ending with a cool QTE type boss battle where you're destroying the helicopter that Mr. Negative is flying in. It all just seems really cinematic and super seamless and a lot of fun to watch, and I'm hoping there's a lot more scenes like it in the game when it launches. Because while I do want controlling Spider-Man to be fun, I also want Spider-Man to just look cool while he's doing everything. That's something that's super important to me. But even though we saw all that cool stuff, I think the coolest thing we saw was at the very end of the trailer, and that's when Miles Morales pops up, which I was not expecting at all, but I was so happy to see. It's so cool. He's standing with his friend filming the mess that Spider-Man just created, and as his friend leaves, he calls out for Miles to come with him. And the smile on Miles' face says something. Like, it's just something about it stands out to me. Like, maybe he knows Spider-Man, he knows that it's Peter Parker, like he works with him or something. Maybe Miles already has his powers, and this New York has two Spider-Mans, or Spider-Men, I guess. There really isn't anything to go on, but as a huge fan of Miles Morales, I would love if you were able to maybe play as him for a little bit, even if it's only for the smallest chunk of the game. I don't even need to play as him, just give me Miles Morales like suited up and just part of the story, and I'll be happy. And the way that they treated this scene was almost like an after credit sequence, and I doubt that Miles is insignificant. In fact, I think he plays a huge role in this game. And those are some things that you need to know about Insomniac Spider-Man, but we want to hear from you guys. Is it everything you hoped it would be? How do you guys feel about the combat and the web swinging? Also, are you just as excited as me over the fact that Miles Morales popped up? Meet us down in the comments and let us know. Also, hitting that like button really helps us out, and if you didn't already know, we put out videos like this every single day, and the best way to see them is with a subscription to the channel. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.